Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight Live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories on Thursday the 5th of February. Financial fears. Dozens gather to fight back over estate management charges in Greenhithe.
You know, people can't sell their apartment blocks anymore simply because of the first part and the service charges.
Murder trial. CCTV footage showed to Maidstone Crown Court in trial over death of 4-year-old.
No problem. We'll fight. No problem. Fight out.
And in the picture, young Maidstone photographer in the running for 2 prestigious awards. Our top story tonight. Residents at a Greenhithe estate are taking matters back into their own hands after facing significant rises in their estate service charges. Dozens gathered at a meeting in Ingress Park to find out how they could oust management company Firstport. But the company says all service charge rises depend on the individual blocks and can be impacted by external factors like inflation. And local democracy reporter Ollie Leader was there for us to hear firsthand from residents.
Scary, isn't it? It's very scary. I don't really know what to do.
Some people have said to me, I've got to walk away from this because if I don't, then I'm just going to have a breakdown or something's going to give.
This seems illegal.
It was part public meeting, part group therapy session for those living here at Ingress Park, as dozens crammed into this tiny room to find out how they could fight back against their estate management company, with residents saying they're paying hundreds of pounds a month and getting very little in return.
The service is just so substandard. The communication and transparency is just so bad.
When I moved here, which is about 10 years ago, it was something like 120, 130 a month. I think now it's over 300 plus.
You know, people can't sell their apartment blocks anymore simply because of the first part and the service charges.
There's already several blocks here at Ingress Park ready to give Firstport their notice, but organisers of the meeting hope those will simply be the first of many.
Ingress Park is taking back control. We are going to bring this site together and, our blocks are going to be taking control of their finances, and we want the service charges down and we want the level of workmanship up.
The right to manage mechanism for getting rid of estate management companies is just for those living in blocks of flats, rather than the wider communal areas. But even the owner of Ingress Abbey says that the management of those spaces isn't where it should be.
We're fine with paying reasonable charges as long as we get workmanship, support, communication commensurate with that. And the workmanship isn't great. The communication is tricky. Lots of buck passing and, not my department. And everything is laboriously slow to resolve.
A spokesperson for the property management company says that their priority is to keep communal areas at Ingress Park safe and well maintained, stating that the service charge is calculated to carry out the works required over the year ahead and are influenced by the specific requirements of each building. But for those now looking to force the company out, it's a time for action rather than words. Ollie Leader in Greenhithe.
Next, 2 men have been charged with murder at Maidstone Crown Court after allegedly colliding with a family's car, causing the death of 4-year-old Peter Morn. Owen and Patrick Morn are currently on trial for the murder charge alongside other offences, and the court was shown CCTV footage from the day of the collision, which has now been released. As this is an active case, the trial continues, and our reporter Finn McDermott has the story.
Following the death of 4-year-old Peter Morn, Owen and Patrick Morn have been charged with murder. And with the trial underway, new video evidence has been released showing the day of the fatal crash. Owen is 27 and is marked with a purple arrow in the footage, while Patrick is the older man marked with a pink arrow. It begins with phone footage recorded in the Jolly Night pub in Rochester, showing Owen and Patrick drinking on the afternoon of June the 1st, 2025. Later, Owen is seen outside the City Wall wine bar 45 minutes before the alleged murder, as well as more footage of the pair walking down Rochester High Street and returning to their vehicle. The court were also shown dashcam footage from 3 lorries on the A2, which starts at the junction with the A289 Wainscott bypass, showing what has been described as a chase, and the similar vehicle with Lovell, Hayley, Peter and Annarika inside. Proceedings have also seen evidence filmed by Hayley Morn on her phone as she, her husband and their 2 children were allegedly being chased by Owen and Patrick.
Pull it in! Pull it! Pull it in!
The last piece of footage shows an exchange between Lovell, Owen and Patrick, where the car stopped at a roundabout at the end of the slip road off the A2 at Pepperhill.
No problem! We'll fight! No problem! Fight out!
The courts heard how a few seconds after this footage, Lovell and Hayley's vehicle had been rammed. Currently, Owen, who's pictured here, has admitted to the charge of manslaughter but denies the charge of murder. He also denies 2 offences of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent in relation to Annarika and Hayley, as well as 3 offences including causing GBH with intent, inflicting GBH and causing serious injury by dangerous driving, all in relation to Lovell. Owen Morn also denies causing grievous bodily harm with intent to Lovell, as well as the 2 offences of attempting to cause GBH with intent to Annarika and Hayley. He has, however, admitted causing serious injury by dangerous driving and inflicting GBH to Lovell as the trial continues. Finn McDermott for KMTV.
And our reporter Finn McDermott joins me in the studio now. Finn, can you give us a bit of background context to this case and the trial?
Yes, so Maidstone Crown Court has been in proceedings for a couple of days now, since the 2nd of February. And as you saw in that piece there, this all hinges about the alleged murder of 4-year-old Peter Morn, who suffered what was referred to in court as severe and devastating injuries. His father, Lovell Morn, was also seriously injured, whilst his mother, Hayley, and sister, Annarika, suffered minor injuries. This all came from a collision with another vehicle being driven by Hayley's cousin, Owen Morn, and his father, Patrick, who was in the passenger seat. Both of them have now been charged with murder, among with other offences.
And Finn, what else can you tell us about today's proceedings?
Well, first of all, it's important to note that at this stage the trial is underway, but there hasn't yet been a sentence passed. So, as I mentioned, it is currently an alleged murder. It is an active case, so we can't report all of the details. But as I mentioned now, there are multiple charges against both men, some of which have been denied by the defendants, others have been admitted. So currently, as I mentioned in the piece, Owen has admitted to the charge of manslaughter but denies the charge of murder, while Patrick has denied both. He also denies 2 offences of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent in relation to Annarika and Hayley, as well as 3 offences including causing grievous bodily harm with intent, inflicting GBH, and causing serious injury by dangerous driving, those last ones in relation to Lovell. Owen Morn also denies causing grievous bodily harm to Lovell, and the 2 offences of attempting to cause GBH to Annarika and Hayley. He has, however, admitted causing serious injury by dangerous driving and inflicting GBH to Lovell as the trial continues. And now, today specifically, there have been more details coming out. The court and the jury heard a recorded interview from Hayley Morn about the crash itself, which is said to have caused the vehicle to spin out of control and roll before coming to a rest on the wrong side of the road. She also claims the collision was deliberate, and that is something that is still being discussed in the court. From his injuries in the crash, Peter was taken to hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. Jurors were also given details of the scope of the injuries to the rest of the family, including Lovell, who suffered multiple fractures and brain trauma that will reportedly leave him unlikely to walk ever again. But as I say, this is still an ongoing case and no sentencing has yet been passed as the trial continues.
Thank you so much, Finn, for bringing us those details, and of course we will be following the trial as it continues. Next, a teenager is denied murdering a man on a beach in Sheppey during a trial at Woolwich Crown Court today. A 15-year-old and 2 16-year-olds are on trial at the court, accused of the murder of Alexander Cashford on Laysdown Beach in August last year. None of the defendants can be identified because of their age. The court has heard how the 3 teenagers denied charges against them, but the eldest boy has accepted responsibility for Mr. Cashford's death after admitting manslaughter. He previously told the jury that although he wanted to hurt the victim, he did not think he would have seriously injured him, as the trial continues. Next, a busy road near two secondary schools has been shut after a sinkhole opened up. The sinkhole appeared outside 76 Buckland Road near both Maidstone Grammar School for Girls and the Maplesdown Noakes School. Green Party leader of Maidstone Borough Council, Stuart Jeffrey, said that there was a pothole in the same place about 2 weeks ago that was filled in with a temporary filling. According to the website One.Network, a closure was put in place since just after 9:30 this morning, and the road could be shut until February the 26th. Now, a youth football club is having to fork out thousands of pounds after one of its pitches was vandalised. Children playing for Larkfield FC will now have to play some of their matches away from their home ground after the grass was torn up, leaving huge mud patches. Club chairman Russell Jeffrey believes the damage was caused by motorbikes on Saturday night, after finding 3 motorcycles parked at the village hall nearby. And Larkfield Parish Council is set to discuss whether it can fund the repair. Meanwhile, the club is exploring how it will afford to hire other grounds while the pitch is out of use, which could cost up to £4,000. And that's all we have time for now, but stay with us as we've got plenty more to come after the break. We'll hear about Canterbury City Council's plans to revamp Whitstable Harbour and also about the hosepipe ban being lifted. All that and more after the break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Now, a dad from Broadstairs has been left paralysed from the neck down after a crash near Canterbury. His family say one of the hardest things to accept is that he may never be able to properly hug his daughter again. And our reporter, Kristen Hawthorne, joins me now to share the details of the story. So, Kristen, first of all, can you just outline what happened?
Yeah, so this is Stephen here. Stephen is 32 from Broadstairs. He was driving on the A28 in Hurston near Canterbury when his car clipped a curb at a roundabout and the car then flipped. He broke his neck in 2 places and doctors confirmed he'd severed his spinal cord, leaving him with little to no feelings in his arms and legs and little to no chance of recovery. The former head chef is now facing life in a wheelchair because of that. But as you said at the beginning, Megan, his younger sister Hannah says one of the most devastating consequences is the fact that Stephen will never be able to properly hug his 4-year-old daughter again, and that she's now very cautious around him.
Of course. And
we'll be able to see some pictures
of
the family.
There he is there.
As well.
And you mentioned, I might be wrong, but I think his sister shared some other details about him as well.
Yeah, so she was speaking to Kent Online and she recalled the moment she found out about the crash on May 18th last year. She said that her door rang at about 11 p.m. and she initially thought Stephen had left his keys at home. But after seeing the torch through the door, through the window, she then realised it was the police who told her that Stephen had been in a very serious accident. She then went to her parents' house to tell them before going to the King's College Hospital at 3 a.m. where he was placed in an induced coma. The family then found out that he'd been left quadriplegic. And he was transferred to the QEKM hospital in Margate before being moved again for specialist treatment at Stoke Mandeville Hospital in Buckinghamshire, where he remains 130 miles from home.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for giving us that story and shedding some light there. Next, Canterbury City Council have put forward plans to give Whitstable Harbour a new look, with works to start in the coming few weeks. And key parts of the plan include bringing back Whitstable's wet fish market and redeveloping the Crab and Winkle restaurant, which was ruined in a major fire almost 4 years ago. And we're about to speak to Canterbury City Council's Chris Cornell to learn more about what could be in store for the fishing town. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So, first of all, just to catch our viewers up, can you walk us through the plans that are set to potentially transform Whitstable Harbour?
So Whitstable Harbour has long been at the heart of the town and kind of a real key point to local industry. This is just the next chapter of it. After the fire, which you comment on was 4 years ago, we had 2 buildings damaged, one of which we've taken down and one of which has effectively still remained vacant. So we're looking to both relet and find new commercial tenants for the abandoned building. We're looking for 3 or 4 people to breathe new life into the harbour during outside of the season and in the evenings. And we're returning the fish market and installing a kind of new summer decking area for visitors to the town.
That sounds great. I mean, hopefully it's in time for summer. So do you know when these kind of plans might be up and running for people to see?
So we've identified the local fishing family who are going to run the fish market and, more importantly, support our local fishing fleet by making sure that what they sell is from our local boats. We aim to have that up and running for the summer, and we'll start groundworks on the seating area in March. It'll be a little bit longer for the void and derelict property. We are starting conversations with people, but I'd hope that we can finalise who we might be working with before the end of the summer, and then we'll have to do some boxing out of the building to get it up and running.
I see, Chris, and I'm quite a big fan of Whitstable myself. I've been quite a few times, and I'd say it's already quite nice to look at. I wouldn't say it's a particularly deprived area of Kent or maybe the Canterbury jurisdiction. So why is it that Whitstable has been prioritised for a facelift then?
It's not necessarily prioritised for a facelift. We're concentrating on trying to make all of our areas successful. Obviously, Whitstable has a large number of tourists, and it's important that we're constantly evolving and improving the offer so that we can stay a buzzy place where people want to travel to.
I see, and we don't have too much time, but how are the developers and the planners ensuring that these developments are in the best interest of kind of the locals too, as well as attracting new tourists?
So all decisions within the harbour are made by a board, which includes members of the local public. We're very clear that the harbour is not trying to replace the high street. We're a kind of incubator for small to medium-sized businesses, which we want to support and then see move into the high street. We'll be thinking very carefully about the commercial tenants that go in there and ensuring that we balance the needs of the town with the needs of the harbour.
I see. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us and informing us about these plans on the horizon.
Thanks so much, Megan.
Now, don't forget you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website kmtv.co.uk, including this one.
4-year-old Ray has autism, and his family want him to have the special education they say he deserves. For this, an education, health and care plan is needed in almost all cases, something Kent County Council are refusing to assess him for.
So Ray is non-verbal, he can't communicate his needs, he can't answer yes and no, he can't tell me how he's feeling. Putting him in a mainstream setting, there's going to be no one there that can give him that specialist care. So he does need a specialist placement.
Since before his diagnosis at 3, his parents, Natalie and Mark, have been collecting reports from paediatricians, speech and language therapists and specialist teachers in preparation for an assessment, but KCC still refused to give him one. They first applied for an assessment in the summer, and KCC responded saying that Ray can access additional support in a mainstream school and should be given time to continue developing with strategies provided by education professionals, adding that parents or the school can request another assessment if concerns remain. They applied again in November, but were denied for a second time.
I'd like to know why KCC have refused, or twice, because it's clearly stated in every single report that he needs that. I have had to lodge an appeal. The appeal, I've had to state the law in the appeal to get them to listen, which I don't think anyone should have to do that. Because the threshold to actually be assessed for an EHCP is very low. It's crystal clear in the law that they have to assess. So why they've refused, I don't know.
So where does this leave Ray and his mum?
Even once they assess him, if KCC agree to assess him, the process of getting an EHCP is going to take months. So the chances are I won't get that in place in time for September, which will leave Ray without a school placement. If he doesn't go to school, then I don't know, someone's got to care for him, so I'd have to give up work. I'm just hopeful that we can get it in time, but it's not looking likely.
KCC have been approached for comment by Kent Online, but Natalie says that if the application gets refused for the 3rd time, they will be taking the council to court. Kristen Hawthorne, KMTV.
Next, South East Water have confirmed that customers in parts of Kent and Sussex can use their hosepipes again, as restrictions on their use have now been lifted. The temporary ban was put in place for over 1 million customers in July last year, following the driest spring on record in England. And our reporter, Naila Mohammed, joins us in the studio now to tell us more. So first of all, Naila, just a bit of background. Tell us about the ban here and what's the update that we're seeing?
So it's been about 7 months now and 2 water outages since this ban has been put in place. And it was put in place in July last year and following the driest spring we've had on record, which was back in 1893. And these restrictions include, no watering your garden plants, no watering your gardens, no cleaning your patios, walls, pavements with a hosepipe. And this has affected over 1 million customers. You can see the area on screen now, just the areas that have been restricted by this hosepipe ban. And like I said, it's now been lifted by South East Water, and the head of Water Resources, Nick Price, he has thanked customers for observing the ban and for kind of respecting the fact that there is a water shortage even. But we have had the wettest Jan on record as well this year, and that has helped replenish the water supply essentially. And the company is still urging customers to be mindful of their water use because we do still have spring and summer coming up, and we're not really sure what's going to happen there with water supply.
I see, Naila. So moving forward, what happens next?
So they're continuing to fix some leaks that they've noticed in the last year. I mean, last year alone, they saw about over 18,000 leaks on their network. So they're still fixing those, but they're also considering a need for new infrastructure, like new storage reservoirs and new water recycling schemes. Also working with farmers to improve the quality and the quantity of the water. So, for example, a rainwater harvesting system. And since Jan, they've started upgrading their meter systems to prepare for the new tech they've got coming up.
I see. Thank you so much for that update. Hopefully everyone will be able to water their lawns again soon.
Hopefully, yeah.
And now it's time for the weather. Tonight we can expect light rain across the counties, temperatures reaching high of 9 degrees, except in Dartford, Canterbury and Margate at 8. Tomorrow morning, light showers, temperature in the majority of Kent dropping down to 8. Following into the afternoon, light rain continuing, most of the county getting a slight boost in temperature as highs of 10 there. And your outlook for the weekend, partially cloudy weather, temperatures reaching 11 degrees at the end of the week. A slight decrease to 10 on Monday, but luckily no rain forecasted for your weekends there. And that's all we've got time for now. But coming up, we've got plenty more, so stay put. We'll be hearing more from our guests. We'll be speaking to Sally Smoker, who's in the running for 2 awards at a photography competition, despite only having graduated university a couple years ago. We'll also be hearing from Chris Deasy with all the film updates to come. So all that and more after the break. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight Live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories on Thursday the 5th of February. Financial fears. Dozens gather to fight back over estate management charges in Greenhithe.
You know, people can't sell their apartment blocks anymore simply because of the first part and the service charges.
Murder trial. CCTV footage showed to Maidstone Crown Court in trial over death of 4-year-old.
No problem. We'll fight. No problem. Fight out.
And in the picture, young Maidstone photographer in the running for 2 prestigious awards. But first, a look back at tonight's top story. Residents at a Greenhithe estate are taking matters back into their own hands after facing significant rises in their estate service charges. Dozens gathered at a meeting at Ingress Park to find out how they could oust management company First Port. But the company says all service charge rises depend on the individual blocks and can be impacted by external factors like inflation. And Locals and Democracy reporter Ollie Leader was there for us to hear firsthand from residents.
Scary, isn't it? It's very scary. I don't really know what to do.
Some people have said to me, I've got to walk away from this because if I don't, then I'm just going to have a breakdown or something's going to give.
This seems illegal.
It was part public meeting, part group therapy session for those living here at Ingress Park, as dozens crammed into this tiny room to find out how they could fight back against their estate management company, with residents saying they're paying hundreds of pounds a month and getting very little in return.
The service is just so substandard. The communication and transparency is just so bad.
When I moved here, which is about 10 years ago, it was something like 120, 130 a month. I think now it's over 300 plus.
You know, people can't sell their apartment blocks anymore simply because of the first part and the service charges.
There's already several blocks here at Ingress Park ready to give First Port their notice, but organisers of the meeting hope those will simply be the first of many.
Ingress Park is taking back control. We are going to bring this site together and, our blocks are going to be taking control of their finances, and we want the service charges down and we want the level of workmanship up.
The right to manage mechanism for getting rid of estate management companies is just for those living in blocks of flats, rather than the wider communal areas. But even the owner of Ingress Abbey says that the management of those spaces isn't where it should be.
We're fine with paying reasonable charges as long as we get workmanship, support, communication commensurate with that. And the workmanship isn't great. The communication is tricky. Lots of buck passing and, not my department. And everything is laboriously slow to resolve.
A spokesperson for the property management company says that their priority is to keep communal areas at Ingress Park safe and well maintained, stating that the service charge is calculated to carry out the works required over the year ahead and are influenced by the specific requirements of each building. But for those now looking to force the company out, it's a time for action rather than words. Ollie Leader in Greenhithe.
Next, the Cranston inquiry, set up after at least 30 people died while attempting to cross the English Channel, has found that these deaths could have been avoided. The report found that HM Coast Guard in Dover was placed in an intolerable position and was too short-staffed to be able to rescue the victims. The boat that the asylum seekers were travelling on capsized in the early morning of the 24th of November 2021 and is the deadliest Channel small boat incident on record. And we spoke to the CEO of charity Care for Calais to find out more.
Whenever you get these disasters, there are a whole load of small incidents that all lead up to one single catastrophe. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing undermanning on the night in question. We're seeing the Coast Guard station in Dover with only one fully trained individual and 2 trainees along with him. We're seeing an air surveillance, air search and rescue aircraft that was unable to launch. We're seeing the night shift go off the next morning, saying that the incident was closed when possibly there were still people drowning in the water at that stage. There was a whole catalogue of disasters. But I think from a charity perspective, from a charity that supports refugees, this nails home that message that these are people who are fleeing absolute terror. So they're crossing the channel in a very poorly constructed boat. It's probably not really very seaworthy, certainly not for the journey it's undertaking. You've got cold water, you've got possibly the busiest maritime channel in the world. You've got people who in many cases probably can't swim in an overcrowded boat with no life jackets. And then when the worst happens, of course, over 30 deaths is the outcome. I think that brings home the message that these people are fleeing absolute terror, and they wouldn't put their lives at such risk if it weren't for the fact that what they are going through is probably better than what they're fleeing. They are seeking safety, they're seeking sanctuary, and in that desperation, they will do anything to get there.
Now, how many of us are keen photographers? We all may try our hand from time to time, but Sally Smoker, who grew up in Medway and Maidstone, is already making her mark, just months after graduating from Canterbury Christ Church University. She's been nominated for the Women in Art Prize, as well as shortlisted for the Peugeot's Artist of the Future Award, with her work showcased at the Saatchi Gallery in London. And she joins me now to tell me more. So Sally, you're only 22 years old, so how does it feel to be making the shortlist for these prestigious awards so early in your career?
Really unbelievable. I didn't think anything like that would ever happen to me. So I can't believe it's already happening just after graduating uni.
And for those of us who aren't familiar at home, I had to research them when I was putting this together, but tell us about these prizes and what they're for.
So the Women in Art Prize is basically to try and promote UK and international women's artists, both emerging and non-emerging, and they do a yearly award every year to just try and get people's names out there. And the Peugeot one it's sponsored by Peugeot, and to try and again give people the opportunity to have their work in the Saatchi Gallery.
And we can see some of your work here. So these are the ones in the Saatchi Gallery, is that right? Can you just speak us through them there? I've never seen work like that.
So the two that are in the Saatchi Gallery are the two collages. I made them for a project called 9 Lives, which was my major project at uni. And they're just basically about the passing of my grandma, who died in November of 2024. So I made them as kind of a form of art therapy to try and help me through that grief. And they took, there's 10 collages in total, and altogether they took about 30 hours to make. So yeah.
Wow. So long. So with these, are they different photos that you've merged? Did you do that by hand or digitally?
Yeah, by hand.
Wow.
So that one, the original photos are about that big, and I basically just scanned it and then printed it out and chopped it up into segments and then hand weaved it myself.
Wow. I would never have thought to do that. Is that something that, is this the first time you've done that kind of thing, or is it something you kind of honed at uni?
I've never done the weaving before. I've done another project that involved kind of mixing up photos, but I've never done anything like that before, so I really enjoyed doing that.
And of course, you studied photography really quite local, just down the road at Canterbury Christ Church. So were you into photography before? How did you get into?
Yeah, so I studied before Canterbury Christ Church. I studied at Mid-Kent College in Maidstone, where I did a photography level 3 qualification, which I also really enjoyed, which made me want to go to uni. I mean, I grew up with photography. My mum was a school photographer, so that kind of inspired me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us about, obviously, this set of work's about grief. What other things do you kind of look for in your work? Are there any broader themes that shapes the work that you like to create?
Mostly about my family. They're my biggest inspiration. I made another project about genetics, so I was able to photograph all the different members of my family and make these almost collages, all their faces mixed together. Basically family, and just archive objects. I did another project where I found these archive postcards of this boy named Gavin, which I then did a whole documentary project about, basically trying to find out his identity.
Oh wow, I really like that. That's really cool. And also, you were nominated for these prizes, so do you know when you'll find out if who the winner is, if it's yourself?
Oh, I already found out. I didn't win.
Oh, well, such an achievement to get into the shortlist, though. Was there like a ceremony that you got to go to?
Yeah, well, I got to go to a fancy ceremony. There was in a fancy hotel, and then it went into, for the Saatchi one, it was announced at the Saatchi Gallery in the evening, so that was quite exciting. And I got to meet all the other artists, and the same thing happened for the Women in Art Prize. It happened at the British Library, like a whole awards ceremony. So that was exciting, because I'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah, lots of good fun, I bet. And of course, you're only 22. I imagine you've got a big career in front of you. Like, what are you kind of hoping to do next in your photography work?
Well, the next aim was to try and get a job in the industry. It's quite hard at the moment because there's not a lot of jobs out there. So I'm hoping to try and get a job in archives or curation. So that's kind of the dream. And then apart from that, I'm going to work on some other projects alongside that.
Well, all the best in the future. It was so great to have you on and speak to you about your amazing photography. Thank you so much, Sally. Of course. Now it's time for our final break, so stay tuned for what we've got left to come. We'll catch you then. Goodbye. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight Live here on KMTV. And next we've got all your sports news from across the county, from football and beyond, with Christopher Hards.
Gillingham manager Gareth Ainsworth is still on the hunt for a spot in the playoffs with new signings. This includes midfielder Cameron Antwi and defender Omar Beckles, part of the bigger plan hinted to bring the team to the next level. But the latest addition for the promotion chase is striker Ronan Hale, who had 2 shots on goal in his first appearance against Notts County. Still 11 points away, the manager's optimistic about being on the other end of the hunt. Nearing a promotion chance, Ebbsfleet let a 2-0 lead slip away against Hemel Hempstead. Ending in a 2-2 draw, the back-to-back goals came in the last 6 minutes of additional time, leaving a disappointed and stunned stadium of Fleet fans. Though Ebbsfleet were hurting, manager Josh Wright didn't dwell, using the moment for motivation, saying, "It shows where we're at in terms of that we're sitting here gutted with a point against Hemel, who have beaten a lot of sides this year and have been in the playoffs for a long time." Ashford United draw 1-1 against the Jersey Bulls, with manager Craig Stone praising Gary Lockyer's patience. A half-time talk between the manager and Lockyer highlighted the need to stay in the box and not to go looking for the ball. And though Ashford dominated in possession, they found themselves 1-0 down when the plan finally paid off in the 88th minute, with the captain and striker equalising in bicycle kick fashion. Manager Craig Stone highlighted, "He only needs 1 or 2 chances and he will score," and that proved the case with his goal. Team England have announced their para-powerlifting squad, with Dartford's Liam McGarry for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. McGarry's inclusion in the heavyweight category comes with performances such as finishing 5th at the 2022 Commonwealth Games and 5th again in the 2024 Paralympics in Paris. With Team England sitting 2nd in the para-powerlifting medal table, it's a testament to returning members like McGarry. Invicta Dynamos will face another double-header in Division 1 of the National Ice Hockey League. After narrowly losing last week's back-to-back games to Chelmsford Chieftains and Slough Jets, the emotions were mixed. Playing 2 matches in 2 days is taxing, and Lennon, head coach for the Dynamos, didn't want to blame officials, but felt they were on the wrong side of luck twice. For their next doubleheader, the Dynamos will face the Redhawks, a game Lennon says his players will approach with confidence. Christopher Hards for KMTV.
And on the topic of sport, don't forget you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website. It's kmtv.co.uk, of course. And there you'll find all our reports, including this one about a wrestling club supporting young people to become the next generation of fighting talent.
Genesis Professional Wrestling is on a mission to provide the Kent community with a brand of wrestling that they can follow and call their own.
Having a company that is basically made in Kent, for Kent, by Kent people. When I first started wrestling back in 1997, I lived in Felixstowe in Suffolk, and I had to travel all the way down to Sittingbourne to train, and then the shows were all based in Kent. And there's a lot of travelling around that we have to do. So the idea is that we source local talent, we train them up, and then we put them on our shows and they perform in front of our audiences. And you're not then on the road 300 days a year. We're catering to our own community.
Their academy is a safe place for juniors from the age of 8 to learn and develop across all aspects of the wrestling scene. When they are ready, students are offered the opportunity to showcase their talent during the shows. I went down on the weekend to see some of their homegrown stars from their very own academy in action.
Here at the Bowling in Maidstone, things are starting to really fire up. As you can probably see from behind me, people are starting to pour in, and the wrestlers are due any second now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Genesis Professional Wrestling!
We have a children's club and an adults class. And I know every single one of them by name. It's a whole family. My son is currently taking the British wrestling circuit by storm. So not only has he progressed to the Genesis main shows, he's out working the British wrestling scene. So, yeah, we definitely can see them through from a childhood dream right to achieving it.
And it's clear the sport is loved by adults just as much as it is by kids.
I watched as a kid.
and kind of fell out with it for several years. I was in a sports bar one day just having a drink and it came on TV and I was like, that looks like fun and I need to go to the gym more. And it feels like, you know, taking your shirt off in front of a crowd of people, that's a good incentive to actually work out more. I just looked for local schools, found the Gem Pro Academy.
I was always a huge fan as a kid growing up. Just pretty much like everyone saw it on TV and got the bug. And at the time when I started was in '95. So I've been doing it 30 years now. It was a lot different landscape than it is today.
I've always loved wrestling from the age of 8 or 9. Grew up watching it, thoroughly enjoyed it. Knew I'm never athletic enough to actually do it. I've done one session and I can't train myself to land.
Whether in the ring or in the crowd, for many here, it's not just about the show. It's about being a part of something that feels close to home. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Maidstone.
And it's February, so a lot of people are a fair way into their New Year's resolutions. Are there disappointments or are there anticipations for the rest of the new year to continue with your New Year's? I'm ad-libbing this, I don't have a script, but I've got Chris here. We're going to talk about films.
Hi, Megan.
And we're going to talk about disappointments and expectations. So on the disappointment side of films, we've been looking at some of the box office dips or that haven't done as well as we might have thought. So the first one I've got on my list is Jason Statham's Shelter, which only got $5 million in its open weekend compared to its $50 million budget. Have you seen that?
I have seen it. Now, I saw it on the weekend, and it's a guilty pleasure. I mean, all his films are the same. They're always the idea that there's family. He's estranged from family. First of all, he's this very taciturn, brusque person, but then he takes his niece under his wing and goes out to save her. So the arc is such a familiar one. And he's a special operatives person. He's retired, supposedly dead, and then he comes back for one last battle with the head of MI6. Do you know, it's a bit like, I saw a film in the 90s called Murder at 1600, actually, with everything, all the political stuff in the news. It feels very topical, the idea that there are shenanigans at the heart of power, and who do you trust? And it's not really all that different from that. So it's set in the UK, but it's one of those, it's kind of like a road movie, really. And along the way, he protects somebody, and then he gets rid of the bad guys who pose as the good guys. So there's a parable in there somewhere. There's an awful lot of violence as well.
You're speaking of it quite highly. Did it surprise you? Did you go in knowing it hadn't done very well in its opening weekend?
Well, I saw it on the opening weekend, and there weren't. When I arrived at the auditorium, it was just me. Then about half a dozen other people came in, so it wasn't packed. Although, if I'm honest, probably more packed than Melania, which has not done very well.
That is next on my list. It's like you read my mind, Chris. So that only made 33,000 at the UK box office. So do you think that's to do with the UK audience, maybe?
I think it is, although even in America and some of the parts of the States where you would imagine that that Trump is particularly successful, it hasn't done all that fantastically. And I've even heard stories of people who've been paying money for another film and then sneaking in knowing that it's a quiet screening because they're wary. But because there's a lot going on here when you've got a film about a politician who can be quite Marmite, and a lot of people are thinking, oh, do we want to pay our money to watch this? So it hasn't done very well, and I know people who have actively gone out of their way not to watch it, shall we say.
And I suppose it's interesting to have kind of a biopic when the figure is still alive and very much present. A lot of it we see Steve Jobs and Freddie Mercury, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah, and of course in those cases there's a lot of mythologizing based around the people, almost the disciples, if you like, the people who were around who can say 30 years ago Freddie Mercury was this fantastic artist. But in the case of the present First Lady, it's like when Oliver Stone made a film about George W. Bush. While George W. Bush was still in office, people thought, hang on, normally you have to wait at least 5 years.
Yeah, and moving on from disappointment, sorry, that was a bad analogy I tried to draw together at the last second. Now we're looking forward, we've got some expectations for films that we might be seeing soon. So I've got here Rachel McAdams' return to screens in the new horror and comedy Send Help.
And guess what? I'm watching it at 8:30 tonight.
Oh, is it this
so
one?
This is the opening day, yeah. I mean, Rachel McAdams, I mean, I remember The Notebook. That was one of her very first films, going back to, well, that was 2004. So, I mean, this looks really interesting because there's almost like a desert island setting, but it's workplace politics. What happens when you go with like the boss from hell or the employee from hell, depending on your point of view, and they're stranded together, and it looks like there's going to be an inversion of roles. Like the more, like she's put down in the office, but actually she's the one with the survival instinct when they're out in the wild.
Brilliant, yeah. And another one that I'm quite looking forward to is the one with Zendaya and Robert Pattinson in. Is that something that's on your radar?
Well, I will absolutely watch almost everything, but I mean Zendaya. I mean the tennis film that she did, Challenges.
Yeah, Challenges. That's the one.
Of the year, and of course she's been in Marvel films as well. So it's always nice to watch such a variety of different types of film, and Robert Pattinson as well, because we associate with the Twilight films and Batman. So they bring a lot of cinematic history along the way.
And those films, they're coming to us soon, much like the new episode of Kent Film Club. So what can we expect?
This is, well, they're all good, of course, but Dave Reed, who's a novelist, and he has a book out right now, and his films, I mean, you can check them off. Goodfellas, The Big Lebowski, there's a Monty Python film in there. Yeah. I mean, it's all the classics that you could ask for. So it's the kind of thing, lots of like